date you anymore. You are too broke.
Imagine sacrificing everything for the woman you love, paying her school fees, supporting her dreams, believing in her future, only for her to leave when a richer man appears, and look at you like you were never enough. Then one day, she pulls up to your tire shop in a black G-Wagon with her new lover. He leans casually against the car, laughing. She stands beside him, pointing at you, mocking the man who built her dreams while she now celebrates with the man who bought her attention. But what they didn't know was that the man in the grease-stained overalls was rebuilding quietly. So sit tight, because I'm about to show you what really happened. Watch this story till the end, the betrayal, the mockery, and the comeback you won't see coming. Like, share and subscribe, and before the story continues, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? And what time is it right now? Daniel Okafor was not the kind of man who did things halfway. When he loved completely. When he worked until his hands hurt. And when he made a promise, he kept it, even when keeping it cost him everything. That was just who Daniel was. He grew up in a modest home in Surulere, Lagos, the first son of a retired civil servant and a petty trader mother who sold pepper and tomatoes at the local market every morning before sunrise. They were not rich, but they were proud. His mother always told him, "Daniel, whatever you do in this life, do it with a good heart." He never forgot those words. Daniel got into university on his own merit. No connection. No shortcut. Just hard work and a sharp mind. And it was there, in his first year at a Lagos State University, sitting under a mango tree outside the faculty building, that he met Tracy Williams. Tracy was laughing when he first saw her, a loud, carefree laugh that made everyone nearby turn and smile. She had bright eyes, natural hair, and the kind of confidence that made a room feel smaller the moment she walked in. Daniel watched her from a distance for 3 weeks before he found the courage to speak to her. When he finally did, she looked at him and said, "I was wondering when you were going to say something." They started dating 2 weeks later. For 2 years, they were inseparable. They ate jollof rice from the same plate in the cafeteria. They stayed in the library till midnight studying together. They walked hand in hand across campus while other students smiled and called them the perfect couple. Daniel was proud to love her. Tracy seemed proud to be loved. But life, as Lagos will teach you quickly, does not stay comfortable for long. At the end of Daniel's second year, the money finished. His father's pension had been delayed for months. His mother's business had slowed down badly. Paying for 2 children in university was no longer possible. Daniel had a younger sister in secondary school whose fees also needed to be paid. Something had to give. Daniel sat with this problem alone for 2 weeks before he told Tracy. He didn't want to worry her. He didn't want to seem weak. But one quiet evening, sitting on a bench outside her hostel, he finally said the words, "I have to leave school. At least for now." Tracy grabbed his hand immediately. "No, Daniel. We'll figure something out." But Daniel had already figured it out. He had thought about it carefully, turned it over in his mind every night, and come to one clear conclusion. Tracy was 1 year away from finishing her degree. If she stopped now, everything she had worked for would be wasted. But if Daniel stepped back, got a job, supported her through to graduation, then they could both start fresh on solid ground. "You finish your degree," he told her. "I'll work. I'll send you money. When you graduate and get a good job, we build together. That's the plan." Tracy cried that night. She held him tight and told him she loved him. She told him she would never forget what he was doing for her. She told him that one day, she would pay him back 1,000 times over. Daniel believed every word. He moved back home to Surulere and found work at a roadside tire shop on a busy street near the motor park. The owner, Alhaji Musa, was a quiet man who paid fairly and asked no unnecessary questions. Daniel learned quickly. Within weeks, he could patch a tire, replace a rim, and pump and balance faster than anyone else at the shop. It was not the life he had imagined for himself. He had dreamed of an office, a suit, a briefcase. Instead, he had overalls with grease stains, a plastic chair under a patched canopy, and the noise of Lagos traffic from morning till evening. But he did not complain. Not once. Every Friday, he sent Tracy money, sometimes 5,000 naira, sometimes 8, depending on what the week had been like. He recharged her phone. He sent extra when she said she needed textbooks. When she told him the hostel generator was not working and she needed a reading lamp, he bought one and sent it through a friend traveling to her school. Tracy always said thank you. She always told him she loved him. And for a long time, that was enough. Then came James Adeyemi. James was the son of a Lagos businessman whose name appeared in newspapers. He drove a black SUV to campus, wore clothes that cost more than most student school fees, and moved through the university like someone who had never been told no in his entire life. He was not a student. He simply came around because he liked the environment, liked the girls, liked the attention. He noticed Tracy at a faculty event in her 3rd year. By the end of that week, he had her number. By the end of the month, he was taking her to restaurants Daniel had never even heard of. Tracy did not tell Daniel any of this. She stopped calling as often. She said she was busy with assignments. She said the network in her area was bad. She said she was tired and needed rest. Daniel listened and understood and kept sending money and kept calling and kept waiting. Then one week, she did not pick up at all. He called 14 times in 3 days. Nothing. He sent messages. Nothing. He asked a mutual friend to check on her. The friend reported back awkwardly that Tracy seemed fine. She had been seen around campus, laughing and looking well. Daniel sat with that information for a long time. Something cold settled in his chest. But still, he told himself there must be an explanation. She was probably stressed. She would call when she was ready. He would wait. He kept waiting. She never called. The day everything became clear arrived on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Daniel was in the middle of changing a tire when a clean black SUV pulled up slowly at the edge of the road. He didn't pay special attention at first. Nice cars stopped at the shop all the time. He wiped his hands on his overalls and walked over. The passenger door opened. Tracy stepped out. Daniel stopped walking. His brain took a moment to understand what his eyes were seeing. Tracy, his Tracy, standing on the same street as his shop, wearing expensive clothes he had never seen before, with sunglasses that probably cost more than a week of his salary. She had not seen him yet. She was laughing at something the driver had said. Then she turned, and she saw him. For one brief moment, something moved across her face. Shock. Recognition. Then, nothing. Her expression went completely flat, like a phone screen going dark. Daniel walked forward slowly. His heart was pounding, but his voice was calm. Tracy. She looked at him the way you look at a stranger who calls your name by mistake. Then she turned to the driver who had stepped out of the car, a tall, well-dressed young man, and said simply, "I don't know him." The man looked Daniel up and down. Dirty overalls. Rough hands. Small roadside shop behind him. A slight smile played at the corner of his mouth. The kind of smile that is worse than any insult because it does not even consider you worth insulting properly. He said something quietly to Tracy, and she laughed. They got back in the car and drove away. Daniel stood on the roadside for a long time after the car disappeared. Around him, Lagos continued as it always did, loud, busy, unbothered. A Danfo bus honked. A woman walked past balancing a tray on her head. Someone nearby was frying akara and the smell drifted through the air. None of it reached him. He was somewhere far away. That night, in the single room he rented not far from the shop, Daniel sat on the edge of his bed in the dark. He thought about the morning he had told Tracy he was leaving school. He thought about the look on her face, the tears, the promises, the tight hug. He thought about every Friday he had sent money he could barely spare. He thought about the generator lamp. He thought about 14 unanswered calls. Then he put his face in his hands and he cried. Not the kind of crying that feels good afterward. The kind that comes from a place so deep it surprises you. The kind that makes no sound because the pain is too heavy even for noise. He cried for a long time. Then he lay down, stared at the ceiling, and eventually slept. The next morning, he opened the shop as usual. This was Daniel's way. You feel the pain completely, and then you get up and keep going. His mother had raised him that way. So he opened the shop, set up his tools, and sat down in his plastic chair with a cup of tea. But his mind was elsewhere. He was sitting like that, quiet, still, looking at nothing, when a neat silver car pulled up. The driver wound down the window and smiled. Daniel Okafor. He looked up. Then he blinked, and for the first time in days, something in his face softened. It was Grace Ease. Grace was from his university days. They had been in the same department, sat in some of the same classes, and fallen into an easy friendship during group assignments and long afternoons in the campus library. She was smart and funny and completely unpretentious, which surprised most people when they found out her family was one of the established wealthy families in Lagos. She drove a nice car and lived in a nice house, but she never once made anyone feel small because of it. She parked the car and came out. She was dressed simply, jeans, a neat blouse, natural hair pulled back. She looked at Daniel for a moment, taking in the shop, the overalls, the tiredness around his eyes. "What happened to you?" she asked quietly. Not rudely. Just honestly, the way only a real friend can ask. And Daniel, who had told no one, who had been carrying the whole weight of the past year alone, found himself talking. He told her everything. From the day he left school to the years of sending money. The unanswered calls. The black SUV. Tracy standing on his street and saying she did not know him. James and the look on his face. The night he spent crying in the dark. Grace sat on the bench outside the shop and listened. She did not interrupt. She did not offer quick solutions or easy comfort. She just listened, the way you listen when you actually care about what someone is telling you. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You deserved better, Daniel. You always did." He looked at her and smiled faintly. It was the first time he had smiled in days. What Daniel did not know, what he had never quite noticed during all those university years, was that Grace had always felt something for him. She had admired the way he carried himself, the way he treated people, the quiet strength in him that had nothing to do with money or status. But he had been with Tracy, and Grace was not the kind of person to interfere where she was not invited. So she had kept it to herself, stayed his friend, and watched from a respectful distance. She had never stopped caring though. Grace did not just offer sympathy and leave. In the weeks that followed, she showed up. She had a contact at a growing logistics company on Lagos Island, a family friend who was expanding his operations and needed sharp, reliable people on his team. She put in a word for Daniel. She helped him prepare. She sat with him in her car one evening and went through likely interview questions until he felt ready. Daniel got the job. It was not a miracle. It was preparation meeting opportunity meeting someone who believed in you. The salary was more than 3 times what he made at the tire shop. He moved to a better room. He bought new clothes. He started saving. But more than the money, something changed in Daniel on the inside. The wound from Tracy had done something painful, yes, but it had also cleared his vision. He saw the world more clearly now. He saw people more clearly. And one person he saw with new eyes entirely was Grace. She was always there. Not loudly or demandingly, just consistently. A call to check how the first week at work went. Lunch on a Saturday when she happened to be on his side of town. Small things done with such quiet care that they settled into his heart before he even realized it. One evening, sitting at a small restaurant on Lagos Island with the city lights beginning to glow outside the window, Daniel looked across the table at Grace as she argued cheerfully about whether bunga soup was better than egusi, and something opened up in his chest. A warmth. A certainty. The feeling of being exactly where you are supposed to be. He reached across the table and held her hand. She stopped talking and looked at him. "I was so blind," he said. "You were right there the whole time. And I never saw you." Grace looked at him for a moment. Then she smiled, a real, full smile that reached her eyes. "You see me now," she said softly. "That's enough." He took her on a proper date the following weekend. Then another. Then another. And what grew between them was something neither of them had to force or perform. It was easy and honest and warm, the kind of love built on a foundation of real friendship and genuine respect. Tracy's story moved in the opposite direction. James, it turned out, was not a man who stayed anywhere for long. He was used to having whatever he wanted, and like most things he wanted easily, he grew bored of Tracy once the novelty wore off. More than that, he was perceptive enough to see that Tracy's affection was not really about him, it was about what he represented. Security. Comfort. A better life. He had seen that look in enough people's eyes to recognize it immediately, and he had no interest in being someone's stepping stone. He ended things without drama. One conversation, clean and final. Tracy found herself alone in Lagos with a degree, no Daniel, no James, and a hollowness she had not expected. She had thought the degree and the connections and the nice lifestyle were the prize. She had not understood until now that she had traded away something that could not be replaced. The moment that closed the story came on a quiet evening at a mall on Victoria Island. Tracy was walking out of a store, scrolling through her phone, when she heard laughter nearby. She looked up. Daniel was walking toward the exit with a woman beside him. He was dressed well, clean, fitted, confident in a way he had never quite carried himself before. And the woman beside him was leaning close to him, saying something that was making him laugh from his stomach, the deep, genuine kind. Tracy recognized Grace a half-second before they recognized her. Daniel saw her. His steps did not slow. His face did not tighten. He simply looked at her with calm, clear eyes, no anger, no bitterness, no performance of forgiveness. Just peace. The kind that comes from having moved through pain honestly and arrived somewhere real on the other side. He gave her a small nod. Then he and Grace walked on, still talking, still laughing, disappearing through the exit doors and into the bright Lagos evening. Tracy stood in the middle of the mall and did not move for a long time. She thought about a young man under a mango tree who had looked at her like she was the most important thing in his world. She thought about the promises she had made and broken without a second thought. She thought about the way she had stood on a roadside and said, "I don't know him," and the look that had passed across his face in that moment before he hit it. She understood now what she had done. Not just to Daniel, but to herself. She had chosen shine over substance, and ended up with neither. The doors of the mall slid open and closed. People moved around her. Lagos, as always, kept going. Daniel and Grace did not look back. They had dinner that evening at a spot they liked near the water, and they talked about everything and nothing, the way people do when they are comfortable enough with someone to simply exist beside them without pretending. Outside, the Lagos skyline glittered over the lagoon. Daniel picked up his glass and looked at Grace across the table. She was smiling at something she had just said, and in that moment, he felt a gratitude so deep it was almost painful. Gratitude for the hard years, even. Because without them, he might never have learned the difference between someone who stays because it is convenient and someone who stays because they choose to. He had learned the difference. And it had changed everything. Some people come into your life and take everything they can carry, and leave. Some people come quietly, stay without announcement, and build something with you that lasts. Daniel gave everything to the wrong person and lost it all. Then the right person helped him find something better, himself. And in Lagos, where every day is a hustle and every story is still being written, that is more than enough. And that's the story. From sacrifice, to betrayal, to silence, to growth, and finally, redemption. Daniel didn't win by revenge. He won by rebuilding. Grace didn't win by competition. She won by consistency. And Tracy, she learned the hard way that choices have consequences. Like, share and subscribe, and before the story continues, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? And what time is it right now?